on the debit side. The debit that affects the educational effectiveness of the Inglewood Unified School District is the loss of teacher instruction and pupil learning time due to the noise created by takeoffs and landings at the Los Angeles International Airport. As of December the 11th, 1967, the LA International Airport was reporting a weekday average of 1,500 takeoffs and landings per day. Approximately one-half of these occurring from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily. This would account for approximately one aircraft flying over Inglewood schools every 1.5 minutes. To help you realize the density and duration of the aircraft noise factor, we have made recordings. The first was taken in room 19 at Woodworth Elementary School. Let us join the primary math lesson in session.
Yep, just like we've been doing it. Parentheses and the whole works. He's going to be breaking it up into what and what and what, class? Hundreds. Okay. There you go. So far, is it right?
Our second tape was taken at Monroe Junior High School in room 17. Let us join the English class that is in progress.
So what about sentence meaning? What about it? Did it change or stay the same? Stayed the same, okay? All right. Now, there's another question that Edwards asked for answer. Debbie, do you want to read the top line? All right, so where and what word in that first line are the same? What word place? Okay, what about the sentences? Leroy.
The third tape was taken while the class was taking an English test in room Y1 at Morningside High School.
In the first question, in which story does humor depend upon a serious inner struggle in a certain character? Name the story, the character, and the struggle.
How would you like to concentrate on taking a test with that noise factor involved?
This is noise pollution. It disrupts classes, raises blood pressure, and causes general annoyance. It was a major concern around 1970. I'm in the midst of research, pursuing rhizomes and falling down rabbit holes. The following conveys some of the process of tracking the category of noise pollution, of laying out its conditions of possibility and tracing its effects, of thinking through its import for an understanding of materiality and immateriality, sensation and energy. First, being in the midst of research, my title is an error. I was misled by the Noise Pollution and Abatement Act of 1970, which made noise pollution Title IV of the Clean Air Act and authorized the formation of the Office of Noise Abatement and Control in the EPA. This seemed to suggest that noise was a pollutant of air. Noise, however, is not a pollutant of air. Noise pollution is rather what Berland in 1970 calls the third pollution. It is a form of pollution in and of itself comparable to air and water in which culturally and historically specific experiences and formulations of noise and of pollution coalesce. A category of a particular place and time, in particular the 1960s and 70s environmentalism, especially in its US iteration, its ability to take hold relies on conceptual fields, political mobilizations, sounds, and sensory experience. That is, of particular conceptualizations of pollution, atmosphere, and the environment, of mobilizations around the environment and privacy, of the sounds of airplanes, trucks, and household appliances, and of the annoyance caused by those sounds. For noise pollution, the environment, technology, and epidemiology are mutually constitutive domains. While the category has declined in use, noise pollution continues to resonate in and through its effects. A flurry of legislation on municipal, regional, state, and federal levels around workplace safety, public health, and the environment from the late 1960s through the 1970s continues to serve as regulatory measures and bureaucratic formations. Effects also spill out from its sources and their quieter re-engineering. Aircraft and airport noise in particular have been dominant rallying points for citizens, cities, states, and Congress, serving as the basis for the formation of civic lobbying groups and legislation. Residents around LAX, as the Los Angeles International Airport, were energized by the noise of the nascent jet age, organizing citizen groups and putting pressure on the airport and the FAA in ways that situated them at the forefront of national discussions. For this reason, among others, LAX provides a good case for examining critical dimensions of noise pollution as played out in relation to urban space, above, below, and on the ground, infrastructure and governance, and through which it is possible to trace noise pollution's materialized effects, which include social formations, implementation of regulatory regimes, and effects on people, houses, and urban form. Taking up the social life or exploring the agency of a category entails drawing on models of analysis designed for material, i.e. durable, objects, for the examination of something that is not material, is in fact unstable, and it refers to something also immaterial that comes into being through its conceptualization or categorization. Noise pollution is something of a Lacanian signifier, running ahead of the signified and anticipating meaning. There is something that can be pointed to that is noise and that might be noise pollution, but that thing, which is hardly a thing, but is alternately described as energy and effect on sensation, does not produce its own meaning as such. Noise pollution brings the atmospheric to bear on sensation, technology, disciplinary regimes, and ground, drawing together entanglements of air, energy, and matter, human and non-human, sentient and inert. As the case of noise pollution conveys, atmosphere is not out there, either physically or conceptually. Present, pervasive, and imminent, it imbues, becomes, permeates, is perceived, sensed, breathed. Noise pollution models the atmosphere even as it is fully anthropogenic, the effects of sounds of man-made machines on humans. Noise pollution de-objectifies sound. Though there may be sounds of traffic or aircraft, there is no sound of noise pollution. Moreover, those sounds of that cohere as noise pollution emerge and come into being through sensation, which, following Deleuze, is in the body and not in the air. Hence, noise pollution presents a notion of sound as inherent, emergent, and sensory, providing thus a way of exploring sound as such. At the same time, noise pollution performs a curious operation on the category of noise, which is defined in the context of noise pollution as unwanted sound or annoying sound or obnoxious sound. Noise, in other words, is not illegible, or as Schwartz puts it in defining noise, the statistical limit on the intelligibility of messages. Rather, noise is legible, already sensed, experienced, and rejected, an abject which, however, cannot be expelled. In discussions of noise pollution, sound is defined as waves, pressure, and energy, used differentially to create links with other domains, the ear, the microphone, other forms of pollution. Sound waves are said to put pressure on the eardrum, signals that are translated by the brain into sound. Sound, thus, is touch, with the sense or experience of it the same as the thing itself. Though generally sound is said to travel through air, water, and buildings, only airborne sound is measured by sound measurement instruments, which, cast as a means of objectifying something subjective, are calibrated to best reflect what is heard by the human ear. Hence, high and low frequencies, and sound as vibration are excluded in practice, and noise becomes that which is perceived by the ear via air. For the sake of noise mitigation, objects block sound. Weather, on the other hand, might amplify sound. Clouds, for instance, send sound waves back to the ground, like water waves against jello, an environmental engineer explained to me. The decline in the use of the term conveyed by the Google Ngram is reflected equally in national policy and airport bureaucracy. Noise pollution remains an unstable category. The instability of the category and the ways in which it is consistently falling away into gaps of legislation, jurisdiction, experience, regulation, bureaucracy, environmentalism, suggests a relationship between the sound that the category articulates and the way the category operates. The category's instability captures and creates an immateriality of sound, or the notion that sound is immaterial. This is not per se an inherent or ontological property of either, but a feature that's made in multiple ways. Making noise pollution. Drawing together an assemblage of science, bodies, values, perception, sensation, and legislation, a lot of work is required to bring together noise and pollution to constitute something legible as noise pollution, to make objective something defined as fundamentally subjective. In turn, noise pollution does a lot of work, even if it does not itself remain as category sound or sensation. Cast as the third pollution, noise pollution differs from that of air and water in the very structure of the term. It describes the pollutant, not the element that is polluted. Notions of acoustic environment or normal atmosphere are used only rarely. For the EPA, the crucial differences between noise pollution and air and water pollution lay in the capacity for measurement. In 1972 hearings, an EPA official explained that, and this is a longish quote, there are some fundamental differences between air pollution and noise pollution. Both of these are in quotes. These are, in the main, the following. A, we know the chemical constituents of a quote-unquote normal atmosphere, and B, our sensing devices, because they respond to separate contaminants, can tell us how much of each given contaminant there is in the atmosphere at a given point as a function of time. In noise pollution, however, A, there is no such thing as a well-defined quote-unquote normal atmosphere, and B, the inputs from various sources cannot be separated by our sensing devices, the microphones, since there is only one quote-unquote contaminant, the pressure waves. And not all pressure waves are even noise. Some may be music or other desirable sounds. End quote. Differences between noise pollution and other categories of pollution are not raised in hearings in the literature of the era as means of questioning the reality of noise pollution, but instead as indicating the need to draw commensurabilities, to suture gaps, to objectify and quantify noise pollution as a real and pressing concern. Mutually dependent features of noise that make it pollution and commensurable with air and water pollution by definition include the following. It is pervasive, and I will read a quote from some hearing or other for each of these points. So in 1971, a doctor who was presenting evidence during nationwide hearings on noise pollution said, it affects many people, may cover a relatively wide area, and be present during varying intervals over a large part of the day. Noise trespasses the physical boundaries of private property and resonates through walls and windows. Second, it persists. However, differently from air pollution, it is said to last in human bodies, not the element polluted. And Senator Tunney said in 72 hearings that he was holding, and this is the senator from the Riverside area who was the model for the character in the movie that Candid did. So he initiated noise pollution legislation, among other environmental issues, and held hearings in 1972. He said, although noise, assuming the cause of it is eliminated, does not last in the environment for a long period of time, there is no question that the person who is the recipient of that noise is excessive and a danger to public health, can have lasting results, and can be permanently affected, and as a result of the noise he has received. So you are, in a sense, dealing with a similar problem to air and water pollution, and in that sense, the impact on the individual can be permanent. lastly, infrasonic range alters brain waves. So these are some of the physiological effects of noise. The psychological is the domain of subjective and affective perceptions of noise and includes fear, annoyance, interference with work, disruptions or rest, psychological effects of frustration and anger, or having psychological effects by impeding on conversation or communication. So, to my mind, these lists are not entirely obvious. They're perhaps even or hazy in certain ways, but they nevertheless continue to inform public health policy and practice. Lastly, noise pollution. Noise is pollution in its formation through and as energy. Not, however, as a form of energy in itself, but as an emission or effluent from man-made machines. A 1971 EPA report on noise explains, quote, noise can be considered an environmental pollutant, a waste product generated in conjunction with various activities of man. As waste products of his way of life, man produces two general types of pollutants. The first type are mass residuals that remain in the environment for extended periods of time. And these are these would be air and water pollution. And the second type of pollution, it continues, energy residuals such as the waste heat from manufacturing processes that creates thermal pollution of our streams. Energy in the form of sound waves constitutes yet another form of energy residual, but fortunately one that does not remain in the environment for extended periods of time. Fossil fuel or electricity generated machines produce noise as waste, the energy of sound waves as an energy residual, one form of energy transformed into another, transduction. Taking, as Helmreich puts it, quote, transduction beyond the realm of the auditory, land recycling is another, quote, process of constituting, structuring, and modifying spatial and logical relations. Land recycling, according to a report on airport noise mitigation, consists of the acquisition of incompatible property and conversion of that property to compatible land use, such as commercial or industrial. It involves purchase of land, relocation of residents, demolition or modification of structures, and resale of the property with proceeds funding further mitigation. Around LAX, sounds from the air shape the ground as a space of absence, rejected, abandoned, indeterminate, formless. Demolition and conversion to industrial use takes the form of emptiness. Hidden here in plain sight is the invisible, a seeming void affected through noise. John Divola titled his 1976 series of vacant houses around the airport LAX, NAZ. Los Angeles International Airport Noise Abatement Zone. The houses had been acquired through eminent domain but had not yet been demolished or removed. The airport mowed the lawns during the week and teens broke in on the weekends. Divola photographed the traces of the latter. When I interviewed Divola about the photo series, he told me, I wasn't interested in noise, and I don't care about the sociological. The photos capture indexes of action, break-ins through glass windows and screen doors, the work of bulldozers, spray paint. There is a stillness in and of the images. The camera does work, one angle or another, flash or without. The reflections in broken windows capture other houses, trees, the sky, portraying the surrounding environment of the house, what the house sees, what it has seen. The houses are silent witnesses, I suggest. I don't anthropomorphize, he says. The houses are mute, not blank canvases on which are inscribed faces of human activity. The choice of angle is formal. The photograph is flat, white, gray, black, a black triangle, a white wall, the shine of the glass in the light, the gray shadow cast on the wall. Indexes of noise, I suggest. Sure, in a broad, abstract way, if you take the title at face value, he says, but I have no way to deal with it literally, to deal with noise literally as content. The invisibility of noise structures perception and casts an ontological quality of impermanence onto sound. Elusive, unstable, and ambivalent noise nevertheless persists in fact and in its effects. At the city archives, I search for traces of noise in the records of eminent domain around the airport. Residents who support eminent domain write letters requesting their own purchase as airport expansion will result in more noise. There is no mention of the noise in eminent domain ordinances. Infrastructure is the legal grounds for eminent domain. The homes to the north of LAX were acquired for airport purposes. A decade prior, homes in Surfridge, an upscale beach community, and by Covenant White Enclave to the west of the airport, were purchased by the city for public works. Deeds claim claimed the lots were to be used for storm drains and electric lines. These properties were sold with varying levels of mineral rights. 50% of mineral rights in perpetuity, but no surface access, no mineral rights for the next door neighbor, 100% of mineral rights in perpetuity and surface access. Homes were offered for a few $100s to those who could move them. Reportedly, ones in this area were moved to South Central Los Angeles. A retired airport mechanic volunteering at the Flight Path Museum said he knew someone who flipped these houses, bought them, moved them, painted them, and sold them for a profit. Visually, the area prompts designations of ghost town by bloggers eager to explore but thwarted by the chain link fence. Through the fence, one can see the pavement of streets that once connected a neighborhood. The area rolls with hills and dunes, the gray-brown sand, gray brown of sand and gray-green of coastal flora. It is an indefinite place, indeterminate and ambiguous, a space that presents itself as Tehran Ba. Spanish architect Solo Morales first used this term in an essay on photography in abandoned urban spaces. He describes them as such, quote, "These strange places exist outside the city's effective circuits and productive structures. From the economic point of view, industrial areas, railway stations, ports, unsafe residential neighborhoods, and contaminated places are where the city is no longer. Unincorporated margins, interior islands void of activity, oversights in these areas are simply uninhabited, unsafe, unproductive." End quote. In other words, these are places that exist outside the cultural, social, and economic circuits of urban life, residual spaces, or folded interstices in their urban fabric. Ambiguous and ambivalent, they are spaces of noisy silence. Others draw out the capacity of such areas to critique, activating them through play or performance. The areas around LAX are captivating. Fenced-off nature flourishes with abandon. This industrial area is shaped by our use of the skies, devoid of human habitation as much for safety as noise mitigation. Yet infrastructural edges are not the abandoned space of capitalist speculation left under or unutilized until its value makes it worth putting the land back into circulation as commodity. It is unlikely that this terrain, like traffic islands or hillsides flanking freeways or dirt-floored caverns under bridges and overpasses, will be commodified, sold, or rented, privatized, capitalized on. But that does not mean it is outside of capital or that it is available for creative use or critique. Instead, capital subsists in urban growth and its twin of security, a capitalist city shaped by and through its public infrastructure. The area is fenced simply because it is airport property. Departing planes fly over the Pacific before turning back for easterly flights, and over-ocean departures are an aspect of noise mitigation, and anybody who's flown at LAX has experienced this. The flight path is directly above the dunes, which it turns out are habitat for the L. segundo blue, an endangered species of butterfly. This is one of 3 remaining habitats. Another is the nearby Chevron refinery. The butterfly lives, lays its eggs, and dies on coastal buckwheat plants, a native species easily overcome by invasive species. I am told there are no noise effects on the L. segundo blue, as there is no auditory structure in butterflies comparable to humans. There is currently a project of dunes restoration underway. Noise pollution's effects are a series of transpositions, transformations, and transductions. The effects do not dissipate or smooth over, but remain complicated and ambivalent, audible yet invisible, apparent yet seemingly void, formless or unformed. The atmospheric, instantiated in part by noise and noise pollution, is caught up in matter on and of the ground, not ground